Hello everyone and welcome to The Big Story, where we discuss the hottest topics of the day right in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Haryanto, coming to you live from the Straits Times. Now we are streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube, so be sure to like, comment and share our video. While you are at it, make sure that you click the bell button so that you'll be alerted when we go live. Now I'll be joined by my newsroom colleagues to talk about the stories that got you talking today. Now first up, bus and train fares could go up by as much as 7% next year. This means fares could increase by as much as 10 cents for those who pay for their journeys by card. This is the maximum increase allowed under the current fare formula. The increase is driven largely by steeply rising energy prices. If approved, the fare increase would be the highest in recent years. Now to tell us more, I have Transport and Housing Editor Karamjit Kaur. Welcome, Karam.
Thank you, Aaron.
Nice to have you here. Now, Karam, the Public Transport Council, or PTC, carries out this annual fare review exercise. For a start, maybe if you could tell us, how do they decide on this fare increase and the cap?
Right, so that's a good question to start with, because it allows us to explain to people how this cap, as you say, is reached. So every year there's this exercise that the Public Transport Council, PTC, does, and where they will invite the public transport operators to make submissions for any fare adjustments, but it is always subject to a cap. So this year, the proposed increases cannot be more than 7%.
Yep.
Last year it was 4.3%, and so to a normal lay person, a normal commuter, a valid question to ask is, how do they arrive at this number? Do they just pluck it from the air?
Yeah.
So no, they don't. There actually is a formula that the PTC uses to decide on the cap, and there are five major factors that go into this. Three of them general macro economic indicators. So what is the consumer price index, which tracks inflation over the last year? They look at the wage index, which tracks how wages have moved. They also look at energy prices. That's probably a key component, given that it is a significant part of the operating costs of SMRT and SBS. The fourth factor that they look at is what they call productivity gains. So this essentially refers to if and when the transport operators make gains because they're more cost effective and they're more efficient, then those gains should be shared between the companies and commuters. So that's like a positive in that sense. And the last factor is what the PTC refers to as network capacity factor. This is a little more confusing and complicated. Essentially, it just looks at actual ridership against extra capacity added. So they look at all of these factors and then they derive a figure. And this year it's maximum of 7%, which, as you said earlier, would translate into a maximum of an increase of 10 cents for the majority of commuters.
So there is an array of factors that goes into deciding the increase. So again, we mentioned expected maximum increase allowed is 7%, and it's likely the highest ever. Why so? Why this 7% then?
So as far as we know, it is most probably the highest ever in the last 6 years at least. And so to understand that, we go back to the factors, right? Like I talked about, consumer price index, the wage index, and all of these have risen in the last year. And then also energy prices. So according to the PTC, these have gone up by double digit. It went up double digit in 2017 and again in 2018. So when those numbers increase, then you would imagine that would then translate to a higher cap, which is why it's 7%. Last year it was 4.3%. So there is a huge gap just between last year and this year.
And is PTC expected to allow this max increase? Would they go for 7% straight?
Okay, so that's like gazing into the crystal ball to some extent. So my own take is that I think it will be the maximum 7%, and I'll tell you why. So last year the maximum that was allowed was 4.3%, and eventually PTC approved 4.3%. This year it's 7%, but that's not the only reason why I say I think it will be the maximum. I think to some extent the writing has been on the wall, is on the wall already. Transport Minister Koh Boon Wan has said on several occasions that fares have to increase, must increase. to ensure that operations are sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, SMRT, SBS, you know, they've spent a considerable amount of funds in the last 3 to 4 years, because, you know, if you remember, we had all those major breakdowns before that, and so a lot of investments have been put into maintenance and, you know, replacing parts, the whole signalling system. And so he has mentioned on at least 3 or 4 occasions, including once in Parliament, that, you know, if fares do not go up, it will be unsustainable. He points to the fact that both SMRT and SBS are running their train businesses, you know, with operating losses.
But I'm just thinking, Karim, okay, so, you know, public transport is considered public good, right? And if it's public good, shouldn't the government then, you know, step in to provide for it? You know, why are we still thinking about fare increase, you know, and eventually, you know, passing on these costs to consumers?
So again, I think this is, you know, it's a debate, discussion that really has gone on for years and years. But I guess it becomes a bit more talked about now because of, you know, the increase last year and, you know, most likely this year as well. And again, I think we go back to the fact that to some extent, you know, the government is, not to some extent, the government does subsidize rail operations. Today, they subsidize more than 30% of the operating cost of both SBS and SMRT trains. In the next 5 years, over the next 5 years rather, the government is expected to spend another $4.5 billion to, you know, provide operating subsidies, and that's on top of $25 billion that has, you know, will be you know, earmarked to build new lines, which includes the Cross Island line that you know, we talked about here just about 2 days ago. So they are already in that sense subsidizing, you know, and also, you know, I think at the end of the day we need to also realize that when we say that let's have the government pay you know, for everything, you know, so that then fares hopefully can even reduce, if not stay where they are. Then you know, the question also to ask is, where is this government funding coming from? Because at the end of the day, government pays means taxpayers pay. You know, so that's a discussion, you know, that has been going on. I would imagine will continue. To, you know, go on, and I guess at the end of the day, just, you know, striking
it's really
a balance.
Looking at then where the source of this money is going to come from, right? Whether if it's consumers paying the fares, or if, let's say, government is going to go full on, then it'll be taxes, right? Taxpayers' money. So, you know, talking about, okay, 7% expected increase. What about needy commuters then? Are there plans to provide assistance to needy commuters?
So if you look at, you know, the experience in past years, and the PTC also made the same point yesterday when they announced this, is that, you know, typically they would look at lower income households, and what they usually do is to issue transport vouchers for, you know, this segment of society, to ensure that, you know, they don't necessarily have to face the full brunt of the increases. If indeed it is 7%, which, as I said, I think, you know, it will be. So that, you know, we do expect that there will be some help.
There's some help there,
you know, going to them, which you know, should be done, and should continue. Again, of course, we still don't know the fare review exercise is ongoing, or it will take place. So really, we don't know what's going to happen, and if it does kick in, it will kick in next year. So of course, you know, continue to follow the news on our website at www.straitstimes.com, and I think some comments as well I'm seeing on our Facebook, you know, giving suggestions and all that. Keep, like what Karam mentioned, keep the conversation going, you know, really, because at the end of the day, it affects everybody, right? Public transport is public good, you know, it affects everybody, and we do take public transport one form or another. Of course.
So once again, thank you so much, Karam, for, you know, taking time off to be with us here to share a bit more about the bus and train fares that could likely increase next year.